If the Downhill World Cup wasn't exciting enough already, it's about to get even hotter thanks to the Gates belted purse. For the 2025 season, there's a €100,000 bonus up for grabs for the first rider to win a World Cup using a Gates belt drive.
Which, as far as I know, makes it the biggest payday in mountain biking ever, and the equivalent to winning 27 World Cups back to back.
That's wild.
Insane. Danny, that's a serious incentive, but all the money in the world doesn't make it easy to win a World Cup downhill race, does it?
Totally, and actually that carrot's been dangling all last year and nobody got close.
Actually, Danny, that's not quite true, is it?
Yes, you're right. So Elenora Farina won the Léger round of the World Cup, racing for the MS Intense team last year. At exactly the same time that Intense had a bike on the stand at Eurobike with a Pinion gearbox and a Gates belt drive.
So if they'd actually raced that bike in anger rather than just having it on display, I mean, she'd have been laughing all the way to the bank, right?
Totally, that would have been a massive payday. But hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? And that race was a bit of an anomaly. The point is, I think, is that this year there's a much more realistic chance of someone walking away with a prize.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's some big names throwing their hats in the ring this year. And I think the biggest predictor of someone winning a World Cup race is that they've won one before.
Yeah, totally. But let's get to the contenders in a minute, because I think there's a few rules worth mentioning before we go on. Firstly, you've got to actually win an elite World Cup. So
does that mean no juniors, no world champs counted?
Yep.
Okay, male and female?
Yep, male and female, yep. So obviously you've got to use a Gates belt drive as the sole transmission system on the bike.
So there'd be no kind of like weird adaptations where you just had like, maybe like the pivot bike, you could have the normal derailleur and chain and then just run a belt drive from the lower chainring up to the upper chainring.
Yeah, you can't just hang a belt drive over your handlebars.
You can wear two, like a pistolero.
Bandoliers, yeah. Totally. Yeah, no, I think none of that, unfortunately. Yeah. But it doesn't stipulate you have to run a Pinion gearbox. I think there are other systems out there, but I think
most people are going to run a Pinion, right?
Everyone's going to be on Pinion for sure.
But Danny, like we all know that the women race in the morning, the elite women race in the morning, and the elite men race in the afternoon. What happens if the elite woman goes out and wins the race before the men get to race?
Well, that's tough.
You'd be gutted, right? You'd be so gutted.
No, actually, they've thought of that. So the prize money gets split down the middle. So unfortunately, you don't walk away each with 100K.
Yeah,
but
you get 50,000.
Yeah, that's right.
Each. That's still impressive, right?
Oh yeah, you wouldn't sniff it, would you?
No.
But there is a caveat to that, though. The old tax man always wants to take his cut. So you're going to have to pay taxes in the country that you won the money in. Yeah. Which maybe if you win Andorra might not be quite as much as if you win it somewhere else.
There's quite a few riders live in Andorra just for that very reason, right?
And also you'll be liable when you get home as well, because generally your income as a sports person, includes prize money. So
they're not the only strings though, right?
No. It's kind of an interesting marketing strategy by Gates, because it's kind of like a reverse sponsorship. So, none of these people that are going to be competing have signed up to be a Gates ambassador. But if you win that money...
Yeah, that's it. They own you.
They own you.
What exactly do they get if you
Well, in the rules, it's stipulated that you have to make 4 media appearances, and then your image and your name can be used in any marketing for 18 months afterwards. Which still seems like a good deal.
Still a pretty good deal for like €100,000.
And also, everyone who's signed up to this now, basically Gates is going to use their name, or it's going to be associated with Gates for the whole season, because everyone's going to be talking about it. So even if they don't win anything, Gates are going to be making the headlines.
We're sat here talking about it now, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all very well offering a fat prize purse, but there's got to be some advantages to using a belt drive for anyone to want to start, equipping it on their bikes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the key one is that it's lighter than a chain and you don't need to lubricate it. I think the other key advantage is that it's going to run quieter than a chain because it's not made of metal, and everyone knows that a quiet downhill bike is a fast downhill bike.
Yeah, that's true. I've my boy's 16-inch wheel bike back.
Has it got a belt drive?
Great, because never had to lube it, never got my hands dirty when I had to carry it home when he'd run out of energy.
So that's work for mechanics, right? But also the thing about this having a silent bike is, people have been trying to do that for years, and this allows you to do it.
Yeah.
The other one is that in theory, like there's less risk of the belt breaking, at least when compared to a chain and derailleur setup.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of chains breaking, particularly out the start gates, haven't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've had a couple of riders winning without them, but at the same time, it's not ideal.
Yeah, and just because you break your chain in the start hut doesn't mean you're going to do an Aaron Gwyn.
No,
You know what I mean? It's not guaranteed.
So yeah, I mean, a broken chain is not like what any one rider wants to get out of the gate, but they're not that frequent, are they? So do you think the main advantages from this are coming from the gearbox aspect rather than the belt drive?
Potentially, yes. Because then if you take that derailleur and cassette that's hanging on the back of your swing arm and take that weight and put it on the frame with a gearbox, in fact, you put more weight on the frame with a gearbox system and you make that part lighter, you're having like a massive effect on the sprung to unsprung mass ratio. And what that means in real terms is that the suspension and the wheels, the bits that have to move, can move more effectively over the bumps, so it tracks better, so you get more grip, and more grip means you basically got a faster bike. There's another advantage that kind of like, I mean, you see mechanics building wheels all the time. Because you basically got that space that's occupied by the cassette, you don't need anymore. So you can make your hub flanges wider, so your spoke tension's more even on the wheel, so you can make a stronger or a lighter rear wheel. You can also make the hub spacing narrower.
Fit through gaps.
So you've got no derailleur to tear off, that'll fit through gaps. And the knock-on effect of that, Danny, is that the Pinion gearboxes have quite narrow Q factors.
Yeah.
So the Q factor is the distance between your crank arms, so how wide your feet are apart. So again, if you want to thread the eye of the needle, you want the bike to be as narrow as possible.
There was a lot of advantages so far.
Totally. I mean, but yeah, I think the combination of the two things together could be a winning combination.
Yeah. Okay, so I've ridden gearbox bikes before, belt drives, Pinion bikes, and you know,
What were going to say, Danny? They're draggy, right?
They're draggy, yeah. So what do you think about that? Is that going to have an impact?
Well, there's a couple of things at play here. It looks like most of the bikes are going to be running a Pinion like 6-speed gearbox, so there's going to be less resistance than there are on the 9 and the 12-speed ones that we'd have ridden on like the Eurobikes or e-bikes, just because there's fewer cogs to mesh. And also, you don't change gear as much. I mean, they select your gear for the start hill, down the start ramp, couple of corners. There might be a pedally section in the middle. A lot of the time spent coasting, and then there's a sprint for the finish line.
And you've got gravity on your side.
Yeah, sounds pretty easy, right?
Yeah. And the other thing that the last time I rode a gearbox bike, the shifting was terrible. It was a grip shift. It was absolutely useless. So what about that?
So they'll be using the electronic shifting. It's called Smart Shift. So like it's you can have it automatic, sort of semi-automatic, or fully manual.
Okay, so it seems like they've sorted that problem
totally,
as well.
And it's a trigger shifter, so like you're not gonna like go into a jump and rattle. You can change gear 5 times or something. Yeah.
And one of the other advantages is that you can change gear when you're not pedaling.
Yep. That's a big one.
In the corner or something.
Yeah, and that will actually take some learning.
Yeah.
Because, like with a traditional derailleur system, it has to be spinning for you to do that. The cogs have to be spinning. So like I could definitely see a point where like you're coming into a section real hot, and then it goes tight or whatever, and maybe there is somewhere you do need to put a pedal turn in. They could pre-select just while they're freewheeling down into that section, and then be in the perfect gear for coming out of the finishing corner for a pedal or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool aspect to it. Yeah.
But it'd be a new learning thing too for the rider.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, Danny, that's enough about the tech. Who's chasing the bounty in this race for 100,000 euros?
Yeah, good question. So last year you had Zerode and Gearbox, but they didn't really have a big chance of kind of winning.
Danny, that money was going nowhere.
No.
No offense to the guys racing, but they just,
It wasn't realistic. This year is a whole different story though. You've got Continental Atherton, you've got Intense Factory Racing, and you've got a brand new team, AON Racing, on the Gearbox bikes, and it's all set up by Reece Wilson. So within those teams...
the first name that springs to mind from that, for me, is Cobe, right?
Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, he's moved to YT this year, to the mob.
Of course.
So, we won't be seeing Kolb winning that 100K, but still got Charlie Hatton on the team.
2023 world champion.
Exactly. The man knows how to win a race. So, I know world champs are a little bit of a kind of anomaly in terms of, the pressure is different. But, he's fast enough to win a World Cup.
But Danny, you're forgetting somebody.
Go on.
Rachel Atherton. I don't know how many world cups she's won. Loads, right?
This is a very good point, absolutely. And she's already had that comeback and blitzed the field, hasn't she? She came back from pregnancy, injuries.
Won a race straight away.
Yeah, so...
Probably would have won more races, but she said like her fitness was a problem, right? She couldn't hold on.
Yeah. But when you've got a mouth to feed at home, you've got, expensive soft play to play with, to pay for, you've got uni fees down the road. maybe she will come back. Who knows?
But Danny, what bikes are they going to be racing? Because like I know that the Atherton Downhill 200 definitely doesn't have a belt drive.
Yeah, so they've dropped some pretty heavy hints on social media that they're going to be running a Gearbox bike next year. It's called the A200G. It looks like a DW6 bike, at least the dropout's got DW6 on it. You know, you can see someone carrying Gearbox down the stairs to be fitting it, and then we've got a shot of Charlie Hatton riding one as well.
Yeah, it's clear as day. It's a high. So it's going to be different to their current bike because it looks high pivot.
Yeah, but it's like the beauty of the whole sort of Atherton bikes kind of business model or design is that
customization.
Yeah, exactly. They can just print. I say print. They don't like the word print. They can additive manufacture.
It'd be better if we could just print the money, right? Yeah. So what about Intense Factory Racing? We've already mentioned that they've got the bike. Who's going to be riding it?
So it's Joe Breedon's team. So it makes sense that he'll be running it. And then they've got a new signing this year, Mille Johnset from Canyon Collective. And, you know, she is young, she's a rising
Did she get
star.
second in Leger last year?
Second in Leger last year. And, you know, she's had some sort of podiums as well, like fifths and stuff last year. So she's definitely moving up in the rankings.
She's definitely a potential winner then.
Yep. Yep.
So Danny, the final team in the mix is the new outfit for 2025, AON Racing.
Yep.
What do you know about those guys?
Well, not a lot at the moment. Reece Wilson is fronting it. I mean, I think he's set it up himself. They're running Gearbox bikes.
Yeah, which is super cool, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's another one of those like kind of, they got like carbon tubes, modular front end, alloy swing arm, high pivot, like made in Switzerland. Like
yeah, it's a mad looking bike.
Right?
Mad looking bike. That's right. And he's the only rider announced so far, but there's 5 others unconfirmed.
Oh, well, that's going to be a big team.
He's saying 1 free rider, which is interesting.
How do you have a World Cup downhill team with a free rider?
Ask Reece. I don't know.
If you had the checkbook,
Yeah.
who would you sign?
Well, it also depends who's available. Two riders that haven't been spoken for yet that are big names are Matt Walker and Greg Williamson from the Madison Saracen team.
That would be some team, right?
They have got good potential for winning. Obviously, Reece is an ex-world champion. Yeah. He knows how to win. I think those 3 together, that sounds pretty
like
serious.
Matt Walker.
Yeah, I mean, he nearly walked away with them. I mean, in Montserrat last year, he won time training. He won quali and semis, and then flattered in the final.
That would be an amazing team.
It would be really good. So, who knows? That's total speculation, though.
This whole thing's speculation, right? That's what we do here.
Yeah. And in the best tradition of every breaking news video, a press release from Gates landed in our inbox about an hour after filming this video. The one glaring omission that we hadn't covered is that MS Racing is back with a team for 2025 riding on Zerode Gearbox bikes. So that brings the total number of teams in the Gates contest to 4. And riding the Zerode G3 downhill bike will be Elenora Farina, Gloria Scarzi, Jacob Dixon and Tehuto Arikipen.
Danny, while we're on the subject of speculation, there's an interesting theme running through all of these teams, and that's that they all have the ability to they either use a modular frame construction or they have the ability to make their own frames.
Yeah.
I'm confident we're not going to see the likes of YT, Canyon, Trek, these brands like entering this race, but I think there are some other brands that could enter the race.
Okay, go on. Tell me.
Well, okay, so we've all been drooling over the Pivot Phoenix downhill bike, the new bike, and more particularly the prototype.
Yep.
They've got that rapid prototyping method where they can bond carbon tubes into aluminium lugs.
Yep.
I mean, we've seen that it's not the most secure way to make a bike, but it's a really good way to make a prototype. And if you look at that bike, it would be so easy for them to just modify the front triangle, switch a few things around the rear hub, and they could have a bike and they'd have Bernard Kerr in the mix. He could win a race on that bike.
Yeah, totally.
And that's not the only brand.
Okay.
The other thing that springs to mind is frameworks.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. I totally agree with that.
You know, I mean, Nico's open to new ideas.
Yeah.
He spent a lot of time playing around with different suspension layouts when he was developing the frameworks downhill bike. So I could see him just getting on board with it.
I'm surprised that he hasn't got onto it, and he's got some amazing riders.
Well, that would bring Angel Suarez into the mix, right?
It would.
For this year.
And if no one wins it this year, and it goes into next year, Ace of Amet.
Yeah.
For this is last year's junior.
He's a junior, yeah.
He's
Ripper.
been beating the elites. You know, people are expecting big things of him.
I mean, what can you imagine? First year as a senior, first round, on a belt drive bike and you walk away with like 100K.
Be like,
That would be unreal.
see you later, I'll retire.
Well, I don't think you could retire that, but like, what a start, right? What a start to your senior career, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people would be fuming. I think.
I mean, Danny, and I think it's really smart of Gates to do this, and I'd like to see more brands do this. Like, could you imagine if someone had, like, if there was a new tire company or a new component, someone made some bars that they said could make you go faster or something like that with less fatigue, and they put up a big purse and got people running them and stuff. And I like it. I like the format.
It's a whole new element, isn't it? To the, I mean, the racing's already exciting, but this is just adding something extra.
It's the race within the race, right?
It is. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how safe do you think the Gates belted purse is? Will anyone win it in 2025? We'd love to know your views. Drop them in the comments. Let us know.